We welcome you today to our live stream. We'll be live streaming from 9:50 to 4:25 this afternoon. And I'd like to introduce our first presenting team, the University of Miami, with their project, Air Traffic Management Integrated System, ATMOS.
Thank you, Victoria. Hello, everybody. We are Team IBIS Solutions from the University of Miami, and we are extremely excited to be here with you today. We have our faculty advisor, Sane Martins, with us, and our other faculty advisor, Kim Grinfender, was unable to join us, but he is supporting from Florida. We are very excited that we actually made it here. Miami's been having quite the weather lately, and we just barely got out of the airport before the airport flooded. There was all sorts of delays. So we had our fingers crossed and we can finally uncross them. So we are very excited to present to you today ATMOS, the Air Traffic Management Integrated System. Our team consists of Joanna, Noel, Sophia, and myself, Kerrigan. Over the course of the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about everything to do with our design, from our design thinking process, our design prototype, and then going into next steps and how we can carry our design into the future of air traffic management and technology in general. So the current inefficient system requires, kind of disrupts the seamless workflow of air traffic managers. The current system requires multiple clicks and maneuvers in order to complete a single task. There's transition challenges from over 57 separate legacy applications and a lack of customization options for users to set preferences. There's inconsistency among the graphical user interface, and overall this leads to a heavy cognitive load due to learning different behaviors and interactions within the system. So prior to this project, we actually had zero previous knowledge of air traffic management. So we looked to LinkedIn to connect with current and past traffic managers. From that, in our field research, we were actually able to go to the Miami Control Center from those connections, in which we were able to collect qualitative data in order to create empathy among our users and kind of see how they operate there, take a look at the system, and learn from all their expertise there. And this led us to conduct some additional interviews, and here is what we heard from those.
So this is what we heard. The less clicks, the better, right? It's a lot to switch over to constantly.
So translation, managers have to transition between multiple applications in order to complete a specific task.
I would just dial in and passively listen on during the planning webinar.
Not all managers are active during the 2-hour webinar.
I would have to physically print out multiple TMI models on paper to talk to my colleagues to find the best model.
Traffic managers would have to make multiple entries in one application for a single task.
So from this, we gathered some interesting insights. We didn't know that the workflow was a cyclical process. It was collaborative, yet not everyone was included. And we also found a disconnect between information and data flow.
So what does this mean? This means that users are being overloaded with information, which can cause them to bypass the important information and may lead to errors.
And this is important because this can affect the efficiency and safety of flight redirection for our NAS users. So an important design thinking principle is empathy and creating empathy for your users. So during this process, we created 2 personality types that are very different. One is more traditional, one is more modern. So we have Robin and Edward, who are users that are using the system right now.
So let's meet Edward. Edward is one of our future users, and he's a very experienced traffic manager who enjoys his day-to-day routine within the current system. He enjoys the workflow that he already has. Although he does feel some frustrations when having to open multiple windows in order to see a specific piece of information, do data entries, and just overall complete one single task and have so many windows open. So with this can lead to him being burnt out and frustrated with the system, which could impact the accuracy of him monitoring flights.
And then we have Robin, who's a young tech-savvy new hire who's excited to start her job. Sorry, guys. Thank you. She doesn't have a set workflow yet. She wants to be able to open up the program and know exactly where everything is, the layout, the tools at the start of her shift. And she feels that the current UI can be cluttered and overwhelming, and this disrupts her workflow. So we thought, what if there was a way to streamline the air traffic management process, enhance communication and collaboration between stakeholders, provide comprehensive and up-to-date information about weather conditions, airspace congestion, and potential conflicts, send notifications and alerts for critical flight information, and do all of this in one place.
We're revolutionizing air traffic management as Adobe and Microsoft have revolutionized communication and user-integrated experiences. Introducing Atmos, the Air Traffic Management Integrated System.
It's a modernized interface for traffic managers, offering a flexible and customizable layout focusing on the task at hand, delivering the most relevant information at the right time to maximize productivity and minimize user error. So these are just some key points from our design thinking process. We wanted a modernized interface for traffic managers. It's flexible and customizable for each user. We wanted to minimize clicks and spotlight information, have a simplified workflow, and a consistent look and feel for ease of use. So up here, I'm going to walk you through the core layout. So up here, we have the notifications living in the global navigation. This would include information like the title, when it was issued, when it expires, affected areas, and the status. Users have the option to create an event or dismiss it, and these are color-coded on level of hierarchy, so red being of high importance. On the side navigation or our panel, you'll find different apps. You'll see our dashboard, which is an overview of your most important apps. You'll find Atmos, a responsive canvas with a floating toolbar on the side, and apps, which would house the 57 legacy apps that are currently in the system for ease of transition for traffic managers. And we'll go more into this during the prototype. Like I said, this is the floating toolbar where traffic managers can adjust scope and parameters to create TMIs. This is a responsive canvas where you can spotlight apps and focus in on them. Here is a focus area with the live apps for a focused view and a comprehensive overview. And this is what Atmos would look, expanded and focused.
So going over some of the advantages of Atmos, first off, we have data integration. So Atmos consolidates all that important information into specific locations so that traffic managers know exactly where to go to find that information, and they can find it quickly and effectively without having to travel between different applications. Next up, the optimized workflow. So Atmos helps to streamline that workflow to kind of give traffic managers the next steps they need to take, prompt them, and directly bring them to the pages through the notifications. They can click create a case to directly bring them to that. Real-time updates. So we know it's very important to keep everyone involved and everyone on the same page. So Atmos has real-time updates that will notify all NAS stakeholders in order to keep that communication continually ongoing and continually open so that everybody's on the same page, whether it be through weather advisories or traffic updates, anything of the sort, so that all people are on the same topic and can get that information quickly. And our user-friendly interface. So within our design, we implemented key aspects that are already consistent with softwares and applications that traffic managers are actually using outside of their job on their day-to-day, whether this be through their smartphones, their computers, in-home devices, or TVs, etc. Those key, whether it be typography, colors, button sizes, button shapes, these are all consistent to already existing applications to kind of ease that transition to the new system and get that quick recognition for traffic managers to ease that cognitive load. And now I'll pass it over to Joanna and Noel that will walk you through the prototype based on the user case scenario.
Thank you very much, Kerrigan. I'm going to switch over now to the prototype. So in designing the prototype, we wanted to keep in mind that the traffic managers would be doing multiple tasks in a cyclical fashion. So there's the planning phase, the monitoring phase, there's reviewing, and there's logging information. So I'm going to walk through multiple tasks, and I used the user case that was provided to us by the TFM team. So thank you very much for that. In this situation, there's a severe weather event in the southeast region of the United States, and our traffic manager has been assigned to that region. The planning. An alert will come in at the start of the workday from the first PERDI plan that was held. Now, the traffic manager can access that event by going to the top alert system or going on the side panel and clicking on the PERDI plan to expand and see more information. The Atmos canvas is responsive and will modify based on whatever is being viewed at the moment. Since our PERDI plan is pertinent to our traffic manager, he will create a case and track the event. The case is created and a new tab is populated at the top in order to monitor that specific case. With Atmos, we have filters that allow the traffic managers to assess situations. So we have a radar filter, aircraft filter, and special events filter. In this case, the traffic manager only wants to focus on the radar, the weather at the moment. So he turns off what he doesn't need and just focuses on the radar. We mentioned earlier we have a toolbar. This is reminiscent to toolbars found in more creative functions such as Photoshop, and it can be manipulated and dragged anywhere on the canvas. So if our traffic manager was using 2 screens and the screen was spread across, or Atmos was spread across 2 screens, the toolbar could be moved wherever the traffic manager wanted to move it to. And our control panel on the left it will always be on the left-hand side. Now, the tools. This is where you will set your parameters for monitoring and creating traffic management initiatives. So you have to set the time. We can do that here. You apply your settings. You will select your control centers that might be affected by this weather event. You'll set other parameters, such as the altitude. And then you can move on to creating a flow constrained area, or FCA. The toolbar will allow you to expand this and choose the type of constrained area that you'd like to do. So you can either create a flow constrained area or a flow evaluation area. The tool is reminiscent of legacy apps to ease the cognitive load for previous traffic managers, and it allows new traffic managers to have an easier way to manage and move throughout the application. So let's go ahead and create an FCA. We'll be using the line tool and drawing directly onto the app. Task number 3, sending a traffic management initiative to the NAS users during the first planning webinar of the day. These are held every 2 hours, so it will be modified as the weather changes or new information is given to them. So the TMI on the toolbar is at the top of the toolbar because of the importance of it. It's at the top of the hierarchy. On expansion, you'll see the parameters that have been set previously are already pre-populated in the TMI program. There are multiple TMI programs that could be made, such as ground delay programs or airspace flow programs. In our case, we would like to create an airspace program, AFP, and we would like to share it through the webinar to get feedback. So we get confirmation that it has been shared. Task number 4, reviewing our communications of the new weather alert that we just created. Communications, as we mentioned, are on the panel on the left, and they also populate on the top. Traffic manager would like to either view or dismiss. In this case, they like to view the communication. Our panel expands, and the most recent activity shows the most recent alert. We can get a focused view on that communication. It'll populate from the center of the screen. With that information, we can close out our communications tab, and our screen will go back to a full focus view. Now, modifying the FCA, how do we do that? We just go back to our toolbar, input the new parameters, and make our changes. Very intuitive and hopefully integrated. Now, determining demand and capacity is a key function for most traffic managers, and having an efficient workflow is important to creating safety for our passengers and our pilots. The hourly program rate populates, and another key feature of Atlas is that you can tear off panels and position them anywhere you'd like on our responsive canvas. In this case, the panel is torn off because it will be used for a longer duration than perhaps just setting the time parameter or any of the other parameters. Now, for modeling the AFP, I'll be passing this on to one of our core designers, Joanna.
Thank you, Null. So now we're going to model the AFP. So to model the airflow program, the user will select the model tool and place it below the hourly program rate. They'll make sure the parameters are correct and they'll press model, view the results. And after they're all right with the results, they'll go ahead and save the model to view the results. So above will show the flight metrics, so the total effective flights in that area, along with the delay metrics and expected time, along with the difference of the time of the modeled program. So task 7, implement AFP by issuing an advisory. After sharing a new model, the traffic manager will be given feedback from NAS users in the webinar, and if everyone comes to an agreement, they would have to approve the model, and the traffic manager can implement the AFP by issuing an advisory. So they'll go ahead and close the GDT model and the hourly program rate, and they'll navigate to TMI tool to implement the AFP. However, in some cases, they'll get a message from the severe weather unit that the current weather event in place is not really a concern, so they would go ahead and cancel the event, close the case, and log the TMF actions. So to cancel, to open up the TMI tool, we'll show the confirmation if they're sure to cancel the TMI. Yes, application will appear. We also view this cancel state of the AFP program to view it and to show that the program has been canceled. So after monitoring, they can log the TFM actions. So during the end of the workday, they can log the TFM actions by closing out the case. By closing out the case, it will repopulate the data into the log. They'll navigate to the log panel that will show the NTML. So from here, it'll be a responsive repository of all the cases during that day, the National Traffic Management Log. So if the user selects the current case, they can view any advisories of that case. And with the actions complete, they can go ahead and review and learn from those actions to inform and predicted their most future events. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the tasks to carry in.
Thank you, Joanna. Okay, so Atmos is going to be the standard to improve the workflow for all air traffic managers. With Atmos, air traffic managers will be able to focus effectively on their task with that focused workspace with minimized clicks and maneuvers based on where things are located on the screen. They can customize the layout and set preferences that are specific to them, their personality, and their workflows. They can experience optimized multitasking again on that focused workspace by being able to drag applications around and place things where they find it most efficient, and communicate with enhanced features and tools. Here at Team IBIS Solutions, we are always looking towards the future to see how we can improve and expand and grow and revolutionize Atmos as it currently is.
So some of these proposed new steps, we are already thinking of some design improvements that we can implement for better integration. So this is an updated view of Atmos. We removed some features from the floating toolbar to minimize clicks. So let's say the user wants to see layers. Layers will pop out. You'll see weather, aircraft, airports, events, zone. I want to see all weather, maybe not all weather. Let's drop those first three. Click done. That's what I'm left with. All right, let's go to aircraft. All right, maybe not all of these aircraft. I need three. Okay, maybe just one. Let's go. When I hover over an aircraft, I should get some information on it. But when I click on it, I'll get an expanded view of that. Then moving on, for the time, I want to see the duration of this. I can have a start date, end date, and I have a scroll for the actual hour minute. This is a good visual cue for users. Then I can open up my hourly program rate, add my parameters, and my scope, and modeling options. Let's go to scope. I want to select those first three centers and add them. I can check my altitude here. Let's say I want to raise that ceiling. I can raise it, same scroll feature. And then I want a model. This is similar to the legacy app, but users have now the feature to scroll on it. I'll save it. And this is what it would look like altogether. Another key design thinking principle is product testing. So we want to continue to user test with current traffic managers and people who are just using the system to allow us to explore other personalities that we haven't had the chance to interact with yet. This would create more empathy for our users, so we'll know more of their wants and their needs. As emerging technologies are becoming more readily available and standardized, we can actually look to extended reality as a viable option. So this includes virtual and augmented reality. So it actually has like some interesting dynamic interactions with data. We can see spatial relationships can be more accurately measured and interpreted. There are some interesting collaborative training opportunities for maybe students who are learning how to use the program. And it creates engaging and realistic communications. So an important aspect to remember is that Atmos is scalable, and that applies to these emerging technologies. And we want to think bigger to what Atmos can be. So you guys were talking about in 10 years, you have to think 10 years ahead. We want to think now, and in 10 years, it's definitely going to be a very viable option.
Thank you so much for all your time and attention and for having us today. We'd love to hear any comments you may have or any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the University of Miami team. We're going to start our Q&A session with our judges. Judges, you have microphones on your tables that you can speak into. There should be 2 per judge. And Matt, would you like to begin?
I'll begin with one brief question for you, and I'm going to invite my fellow judges quickly to throw things out. But how did you, when you introduced your user personas, excuse me, that I thought were fantastic and right on target, how did you balance the tension between those two different perspectives, personas, as you then developed your design? What specific decisions did you make maybe as a result of those two personas?
Great question. I think I could take that on. In our field research, that is kind of like what we saw. That's what we were exposed to. We saw 2 very different users using this, and you could even see it in their workflow, their workstations, what they're going through. And we got a lot of valuable feedback from those users. So that's really what our design is based off, is what the users told us they want to see. When we were in the center, we saw a lot of dragging around, which is reducing efficiency. I need more clicks to perform the same action. That's not really effective. So a lot of our design is based off our user research and feedback we got after stress testing this with a retired traffic manager.
We spoke a lot with a retired traffic manager. Shout out to Rob, who's probably on the live stream.
Hey, Rob.
He gave us a lot of valuable insight about like what his process was. And that's, I think, why we chose to keep those legacy applications there. So with a created style guide, they can be updated to the new interface, but kind of, again, that ease of transition from a more experienced traffic manager to someone who's maybe just starting out. The experienced traffic manager might just gravitate more towards using the legacy applications at first while they're getting used to the interface and then switch over.
Melissa, you can go ahead.
Hi, good morning.
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 We agreed we're all just going to jump in. I'm Wayne Hubbard. I'm at the Command Center. So excellent presentation, number of questions. One question I have was about the communication tab and the NTML. What are the differences between those two functions, and how do you envision those working together or separately?
Perfect question. I see the communications tab as more as a chat almost for the system. So this is kind of reminiscent of Teams on Microsoft if you've used it. This is where I can easily chat with Kerrigan and say, hey, Kerrigan, there is an emergency. I need you to do this.
Or set up those webinars, other conferences and calls that might be there versus the NTML being more data heavy and information based.
You did a very nice job at the beginning, kind of identifying and summarizing the weaknesses of our current system and the fact that we have so many different applications. But looking at your design, you can see a lot of the panels that very directly trace to existing things. Can you talk a little bit about what you thought were the trade-offs were of going with more integration, of taking the current existing pieces and melding them together versus the approach where you've kind of kept them a little bit familiar and separate?
Yeah, so that was actually a really big challenge we had when we first started. We thought these processes are silos. So I'm going to analyze and I'm going to analyze here. I'm going to review and I'm going to review here. And we thought we could break these up into 4 stages. But we found that there's a lot of overlap between these processes. So it wasn't fair almost to section off every app to its own process, because a lot of these things overlap. So we found that this sort of separation minimizes confusion.
So you didn't, I would have thought that your approach would have been more of integrating them more than what it appears you did. And what was your trade-off? Did you think was your trade-off there?
Yeah, so there's, Noel probably can speak a little bit more to this, the difference between Atmos versus the legacy applications. So the legacy applications are just again, the updated current applications that still exist within the system. And then Atmos is more of, yes, there are some pieces that are a little separated just because of the difference in creating things, but kind of integrate and flow together in terms of how Atmos prompts the next step for the user. So based on if a notification appears, they can click on it and access the tool that they need right away versus just viewing the notification and then going to the tool. So in that realm, we kind of chose to integrate that way on those almost prompted next steps for the managers.
And with Atmos being a scalable application, we can always improve and add tools to our application that were reminiscent or used in the legacy app. So that's how we went forward in at least ideating this development.
Thank you guys for going first. I know it's always nerve-wracking. You did a great job. The question I have is about your control panel that's on the left side with links to applications. When you showed your more recent updates to the design, I didn't see that panel there. And my question was really about that panel seems to be the only thing that's there and not movable, not hideable, with the concern always being there for screen real estate. I thought your dynamics were really great, that you can move stuff around and expand stuff dynamically, and seemed very slick and cool. What were your thoughts about that control panel? Does it go away eventually and get replaced with some of the buttons and controls at the top, or is it still there?
Thank you. Actually, that's just a redesign of Atmos. So that's the expandable canvas that you see. So Atmos lives in the system, and the navigation and the global navigation are like set in stone. So we were just showing a redesign of our canvas.
I see. So it was just kind of the internal pieces that you were redesigning.
Yes.
There were some really great ideas in there, by the way. I heard a
Thank you.
little like gasp over here from Shauna.
Thank
She
you.
really
We love
liked
gas.
one too. So any thoughts on making that part collapsible or movable or something?
Yeah, I definitely think if traffic managers don't need to go to that very frequently, and it could just almost be collapsible or something where you go to the side of the screen and it automatically appears and goes away when you move to the side of the screen. Those are definitely good improvements that could be made in the future for this.
Just to add on to that, when we were on site, we saw that some people had dual monitors, and we found some research that said 70% of the time users are going to the left side of their screen. So if I'm using a dual monitor, I want my navigation to be on the left, so it's always there, so I'm not having to drag my mouse all the way from when I'm switching my monitors. But yeah, with user testing, we can definitely remove that if that's something that users would want.
So I'll echo Tanya. I'm actually working with the FAA on building another system for the towers, and that's a gripe of ours is having to click tiny little windows that you can't see from 3 feet away on a little tiny X thing. So the dynamic resizing of windows is a significant improvement over something we're building and actively deploying right now. So at the end, you talked about, 10 years down the line, we need to be ready for this kind of technology. And something that's ongoing right now, of course, is, ChatGPT is a big thing, AI, machine learning. Something that I think is hampering traffic flow management a little bit right now is that there's a lot of dependency on somebody who, like Wayne, who has multiple responsibilities, multiple inputs and outputs coming in and out of his brain. And variance between TMs and their experience, they might take a slightly different approach in how they manage something. They still have to do a lot of manual clicking, even in this. Did you guys take any consideration for doing like either some sort of AI type approach for maybe streamlining instead of relying on the TM to make a cognitive decision, but rather analyzing what's going on in this scenario and kind of thinking ahead?
Yeah, actually, if you go to the Purdy plan and you'll get those models pop up, those are all predictive models. So what is the weather going to look like? We said it right here, like weather can change in 4 hours. It happened to us yesterday. 1 minute it was hot and sunny. We were like, we need shade, we need to go under a tree. And then we're like running around, like getting poured on. So if you actually go into Purdy plan, this is using machine learning based on previous cases that are flying around the same area. And we'll actually give you next suggested steps. So it'll actually tell you, put in some ground delay programs for Florida airports, create an AFP and some playbook routes. Thank you.
Where do you see what you have on the screen there right now, the white panel? Do you see that being one tab in a browser?
So that panel, when you click on the Purdy plan, is it just expands out from the side. And then when you leave the Purdy plan, it goes away.
But this is one tab within the browser, and then within the browser, within that tab, you have multiple panels. And then potentially the user has multiple instances of these across multiple browser tabs?
Are you asking about for the different cases?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so these are different cases.
Okay. And so you see each case living in a separate browser tab?
Yeah, so we thought a big thing is working on multiple cases at the same time, right? We thought, well, what if we work on one, but that's just not realistic. You have to go back, analyze, modify. So here you can open up maybe a couple, 3, 5, 7 cases. I don't know how many you're working on, but so you could switch over from your cases and the applications would stay the same and you have the same tools for every case.
Thank you.
So I have a question. Thank you for the presentation. Very good.
Thank you.
So I'm a human factors practitioner, and I call myself a overpaid step counter. And so I always look at how many steps that it takes to get something done. And I see some really good examples of where you have removed steps, but you always need to provide feedback to the users. So one of the things that I saw, for example, is an opportunity really, is you finish a case and it goes into the NTML, but there's no indication on the log that there actually is something new. Or you may actually want to think about, well, if there's nothing special going on, we can actually skip that whole process, and only when something needs the attention of the traffic manager, we indicate that there's something new to pay attention to. So I see that you've cut down steps quite a bit already. I think there's still opportunity to go even further than that. But yeah, very, very good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Here's a fun one. What is the significance of your team name, the Team IBIS?
So the IBIS is actually the mascot of University of Miami. We are the Hurricanes, but our official mascot is the ibis bird, and they are actually the last bird to leave during a hurricane. So it kind of represents resilience and, withstanding all odds. They're the very, very last animal bird to leave right before a hurricane.
And the first ones to come back.
So
We had a
rename
hurricane in
FAAs.
1920.
Yeah, I had no idea about any of that. Thank you.
Yeah, they tell us that in the orientation.
If you don't know that as a freshman,
It's
just
like so memorized in all of our brains. We don't know why. She knows what I'm talking about. There you go.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed your presentation, especially going to be an end user of it. So I thought it was a refreshing look. I do have a question about the toolbar. I noticed on your redesign that you eliminated some of the features and combined them back, because that was one of my first questions. Why did you all separate so many? But it looks like on the new design, was that from user feedback?
Yeah, that was just some stress testing that we did, and we thought, let's give them a fresher look. Like, let's try to improve this even more before our presentation. And this is just something we found that helps minimize clicks. So like you said, the click counter, we just want to reduce that and simplify the workflow even more. And including these visuals, it helps users to navigate the system even easier than what we had before.
Okay, then I have a second question about the NTML log. I think it was like once you close the case, everything that the air traffic or the traffic management coordinator did, that will go into the log. So every step would be input into the log.
Yeah, so everything would be pre-populated to kind of reduce that amount of having to have multiple windows open and transferring the data and maybe making an error in that.
No, I like it because after a long shift at the end of the day, when you're trying to remember what happened and you're doing your supervisor log for the day, it's nice to know that that will all automatically be populated in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this could also be where you want to see that cloud support system coming in.
I have one more for you guys. So you didn't spend too much time on it, but I heard you mention a style guide, and I know that it was in your paper as well. So I see style guide as a human factors practitioner, gets me really excited. How did you develop and apply the style guide in the creation of this?
Awesome question. As UX designers, that's like what we focus on the most, I think. Yeah, but it's true. We had a style guide before, but we redesigned from our old design. So we took the same elements like the navigation, but we wanted to make it a little bit longer so it's easier to read for legibility purposes. We kept the same global navigation on top, but we took out some information that might have been too cluttering. And we kept like a similar layout. We kept our overall vision there where we wanted to be scalable and flexible for each user.
Yeah, so that would be something going forward that we would create a full-blown style guide, but we did use all consistent components with a component library and color choices and typography and all that.
I'm just going to also add, I love that you have the Zulu time as well as the local time. That's a big plus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's something we found during our field research. We were like,
we couldn't keep track between Zulu and regular time.
we were like,
so.
what is Zulu time? We were like, and yeah, That was a
Do we have any other questions from our panel?
I'll ask another fun one. What was the most interesting thing you learned about traffic flow management during all of this?
There's a lot of acronyms.
yes. So
Big learning curve there. We had a whole
those
document with all the acronyms listed out.
we had a whiteboard in our classroom or like where we would practice. It was covered. It was
Lots of acronyms.
insane. Also, managers, their keyboards in the centers are backwards. So they're not normal keyboards. They are backwards. That was confusing.
I love how you said that without hesitation and with a very straight face. That was the answer. How did the piece that you showed in navigating through this prototype, and then you showed the second section on enhancements, I didn't follow how you made the distinction. Was it that you built this prototype and you were thinking through a redesign of it for enhancements, but it wasn't quite as mature yet? Is that what you were saying? Okay.
Yeah, so we had the original prototype, and then this was after kind of just some more things after talking with retired traffic managers that we wanted to implement based on their feedback from that. And so this is just kind of how we consolidated and integrated Atmos just a little bit more, especially in terms of those filters and the toolbar, just overall reducing that cognitive load, getting as little as possible on the screen as we could, with still allowing them to complete their job effectively.
Other questions?
Not a question, but more of a comment and a compliment on the Purdy plan. The benefits of implementing the strategy through the Purdy plan and the ops plan, translating that into the automation, and then having that being targeted regionally is a very powerful concept. Insofar it integrates the philosophy of system operations, and you picked up on the scan, the natural flow that we go about addressing these issues, and presents an end-to-end continuity of each part of the decision-making process. And so there's a lot in there that's embedded. There's a lot in the Purdy plan, as you already probably have picked up on, but when we talk about triggers, critical decision windows, and then the post-op, when we're trying to recreate what happened and when those critical events and decisions were made, there's quite a bit of possibility there. So I think that's a very good piece, and something I'll probably be talking a lot more about as we go. So
thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
when we went to the Miami Control Center, we were actually there the right time when the webinar happened, and they walked through the Purdy plan. So that was very informational and very usable to have that information to use and implement into our design. So thank you.
That's also where we pulled some of our quotes from, where our traffic manager was like, well, this is going on, but it really doesn't pertain to me, but listen to how they speak, listen to their verbiage.
Other questions from our panel?
And so I think you had mentioned that some of the panels you can tear off. So for example, could you tear off the Purdy plan and set that aside on your right monitor if you have it available?
So the idea is that anything that's on the left-hand side is more permanent, but you can expand it. We do have that icon here to focus more on the Purdy plan if you'd like to. The tear-off function was not considered, but we don't see why not.
Definitely something we can implement going forward.
All right. We will come back to you in just a few moments if you have any other questions. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to the audience. If you have questions for the team up on the stage, we have a microphone at the back that we invite you to go to. But right now, if you just want to raise your hand, I'd be happy to come to you.
Hi, my name is Sinan from the University of Michigan. First of all, thanks so much for your presentation. Really, really cool GUI concept. One thing I'm curious about, I know you mentioned kind of taking inspiration from existing software out there like Photoshop, what were some of the other kind of like applications that you've used that kind of gave you inspiration or kind of guided how you designed your GUI concept?
Great question. Thank you. So yeah, we did look at Photoshop, but we also saw some 3D modeling software, which has, I don't know if you guys have ever used it, but a lot of features. But you're still able to use it even if it's your first time. So we were trying to grab like that concept of visual cues and helping the user navigate the system. We also use for like the communications, Teams from Microsoft. So having that more integrated, love Microsoft.
And Apple, and just kind of trying to pick out those little pieces that users might already be using in their day-to-day life just to kind of reduce that transition. Thank you.
Yeah, even our typography is similar to Apple's, not precise, but similar to reduce that mental, like that cognitive overload and to fit the user's mental model.
Thank you. Other questions from the audience?
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Zubin Patel. I'm a junior engineer with FMDS. Fantastic presentation, by the way. So you guys mentioned you were communicating with a retired traffic manager as you were designing this UI. My question is, if he saw this final project, did he have any notable, comments about the final project?
Yeah, so we showed him our original prototype, which was our full prototype walkthrough. And then from that, there was still some notes that he made were just, his whole thinking was kind of how can you reduce the amount of clicks and the amount of maneuvers you're taking. He found the current system a little frustrating too. That's where we based our user personality Edward off of. And so he kind of pointed out some ways that we can maybe consolidate and make it even tighter. And that's why we wanted to include our redesign with that too.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? All right, back to our panel. Do we have further questions for the team? Thank you very much. Oh, one more?
One quick question. So the update indications across the top, like those kind of alerts, if you have multiple going on in the background, or so I don't know if this was part of your plan, but if you do have multiple going in the background, do they rotate, or is there an indication that you have multiple alerts across the top, or is it just the static one for the Purdy plan update?
So it's color coded, so it would show you like the most important ones first.
Okay.
So it would.
And then as you can see on the highlighted Purdy plan, there's a little red dot. So if any changes are made to any of those side tabs, a red dot will show up showing that there's a notification, maybe something that needs to be addressed.
And there you would see the multiple alerts.
Okay. Any further questions from the panel? Do we have any questions from our live stream? All right, seeing one more question over here. If you don't mind coming over to the mic. Thank you.
So I'm Alicia Fernandez, supporting the FMDS team, the systems engineering side. One of the things that I know you talked about multitasking and supporting kind of multiple tasks at the same time, but it wasn't clear to me how your design really supports that. And what are some of the tasks that you were considering your users to be working simultaneously, and how does your design support that?
So we were thinking if I have multiple cases, I might be modeling in two at the same time, or modeling one, analyzing the other. Our design supports that with our tabs feature, where you can go through our different cases, and our cases, I don't know if you noticed, but we made like a code for them. So start with, I know you guys said like we're not just operating out of the US. When we went to the Miami, it told us that sometimes it goes, like it overflows into like Cuba and the islands. So it'd be like the country, and then the region, and then the date it was featured, and then the time.
Yeah, so the code is very specific to like that case based on location and time and the number of case it is.
And I just wanted to be clear, were you talking about the cyclical process of managing traffic? Is that how?
No, I think that the cases is really covering what I was asking about. I think I missed the real discussion of that. Did you happen to have a proposed design for the cases? Because I see it now in part of the menu. Do you happen to have a sketch of what that case is, what it looks like when you click on that?
It would be
Or at least
reminiscent.
kind of an overview of what that would look like.
It's not designed, but it would be reminiscent of the pullout when you see the Purdy plan. So there would be that column, or the communications log would be more accurate for the cases.
Thanks. And again, I want to echo everybody else. It was a great presentation and a lot of good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? One more. We have about 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Tommy Tran. I am with San Jose State University. I would like to just, state a comment that I view your consideration for VR and AR pretty cool. It's difficult seeing new technologies try to be integrated with like how immature it is. So your guys' consideration of that is, yeah, pretty cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have like a extended reality lab at our school. So we're big supporters of extended reality and virtual and augmented. There's a lot of cool opportunities there. And in 10 years, with that Apple headset coming out, super standardized.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miami. Seeing no more questions, let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
And for our live stream group, I just want to tell you we're going to take a short break from 10:45 to 11. We will see you again at 11 o'clock with the University of Michigan Ann Arbor team.